Hello again. This is Nick Roach. I'd like to speak about karma specifically. I've mentioned it in the past in various videos, but it occurred to me if someone was looking to hear something about karma, they wouldn't know which video to listen to, so here we go. And actually, karma is a funny thing as a word, a concept, because for many it has connotations of punishment, retribution, getting what you deserved. If you've been horrible to somebody, you get it back. And if somebody's having a tough time in their life, or their circumstances are horrible, even disabled people might be included in this. The idea is by some people, well, that means they were horrible in the past life, they're being punished. And that's far from being the case. Far from being the case. So, karma. Karma itself is an umbrella word, it's an umbrella term to label and describe the influences that give rise to the certain conditions of your life. If something was inevitable to a certain extent before it occurred, some energies behind the scenes playing out, someone might say that's karma. But there are different aspects to karma. One, for example, is emotional judgment. If you believe someone else has done something that's bad or wrong, especially to you, you feel hurt and resentful and angry towards them. Or if you yourself judge yourself as having failed, done something bad or wrong, unforgivable to yourself, and you feel awful about that, then, as we're taught by therapists and counsellors, etc., every hurt or pain or upset we have in our lives, we store it unconsciously in our mind, and later in our lives, as we get older, all the experiences similar to that, the same emotion comes up again and again and again. So we're reliving the same emotion. And if you're reliving the same emotion, and that emotion, because everything is one, as within so without, and that emotion is creating the circumstances of your life, then people will say, that is karma, let's say. Because it's an energetic impulse that's creating situations over and over and over again. Because you've made a judgment, that's bad, that's wrong. And that judgment is an unconscious holding on. You've got it inside you. And because this is all energy, all consciousness, experiencing and expressing a need to experience something else, what it often is expressing is its own holding on to something. I'm holding on to this hatred of someone doing that. And so the great consciousness creates a situation for that hatred to come up again. Yes, I hate that. Now, because we're holding on to it still, we don't let go of it. We don't make it conscious. We don't see it for what it is. We hold on to it. It goes back down again into our unconscious, and then it has to come up again later in another situation to give us another chance to make it conscious to let it go. But if we don't, if we want to hold on to it consciousness. You've got all the time in the universe. This is your life. You are consciousness. So you being consciousness and beyond all time, you simply just keep creating the same situations over and over again for you to keep experiencing that as long as you want. If you want to keep holding on to it, keep holding on to it. If you want to hate somebody, be angry, resentful, hurtful, whatever it is, it's your right to do that. It's your right to keep repeating it. And likewise in yourself. If you feel you have failed, that you've done something unforgivable, that energy will keep creating circumstances in your life to bring that emotion to the surface. Because you're holding on to it. So, being the creator of your own environment, you will get exactly what you want. If you want, because you're holding on to it, to have to feel that way, consciousness will go, well, here you are then, feel it. You want to feel it again? Okay, because you're still holding on to it. Okay, let's give you it again. You still want to feel it, do you? Okay, no problem. We'll do this all day, for all life, lifetime after lifetime. If you're holding on to anything, that will determine that it has to come back and happen again. It's that simple. If you're holding on to judgment of yourself or any other person, that judgment is an energetic, emotional attachment, will mean the energy of that has to keep playing itself out. And if you want to get rid of judgment of yourself and others, and there's a saying in the Bible, judge not lest ye be judged, is absolutely accurate. We assume it means if I judge others, then God will judge me. But there is no other God. There's only consciousness, which is you. And if you judge others as being failed, as being wrong, then that energy has to flip back on itself, and you'll have to judge yourself as well. And so you've got a double judgment going on. They're wrong, they're bad, hate that, they mustn't have done that, they failed, and then I failed, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't have done that. It shines both ways. Judge not, lest ye be judged. So what we start to recognise if we can with this, if we can be conscious enough and look at ourselves, at any moment, what more could I have done? What more could I have done? Oh, I could do this. No, in that moment, if you think back to the emotion and what you were feeling at that time, I'd suggest everything you were at that moment, everything that ever happened to you, your emotional makeup, your psychological state, all your experiences you'd ever had up to that point led you right there. And being an emotional creature, identified with emotion as yourself, in an environment, a world made by your own emotions to bring you to this point. You did what you did. It was the emotion just playing itself out, just expressing itself. And if you can start to see that everything you've done in your life, which you or others might decide was wrong, bad, you can accept them, yes. They were less than ideal. Maybe they were appalling and vile and disgusting, whatever, and I had no... But at the time, I was that person, and I had no choice. I'm not that person now. I've gone beyond that. I've let that go. And if there's some consequences of what you've done, and you're paying for that, then that's part of life too. If you've said something bad and that someone else has got hurt and come at you, yeah, I shouldn't have said that, sorry. Whatever it is. But you've got to let your self-judgment go. In any moment you were acting out the emotional need at that point. Now what we're trying to get to is a point at which you're beyond that emotional need. So we're not excusing very bad behaviour, it's the emotional judgment and the hatred and the living hell which you're trapped in afterwards. And because you're holding on to this hatred, let's say, giving extreme examples here, not yourself of course, extreme hatred for what we've done, that emotion is a holding on, and it's likely to express itself again in some way. Even if it's with self-harm. We've hated ourselves so much, now the emotion's playing out a different way, and that's the other side of that karma, you see. Having judged ourselves as being wrong, we now might hate the action, hate ourselves for it, and now that self-hatred is destroying ourselves energetically from the inside, giving us physical problems and difficulties in our lives outside, all because of self-hatred. We deserve to be punished like this. So that's again the karma, but it's doing it to ourselves. Then we get to the karma which is not judgment related. And people might say, well, what does that mean? How can you have karma which is not related to judgment? Well, actually, it's emotional attachment. If we take karma to simply be the energies that lead, that create the circumstances of our lives, I said it was an umbrella term, then if there are energies that are going to be played out in certain circumstances, then that's karma, even if they didn't come from judgment in the first place. And this comes or relates to living consciously or unconsciously. And this is where I've spoken about this before in my various videos about emotion. So, something happens in your life to disturb you, and you become upset and emotional about it. Okay. What most people do, the problem happens in our lives, the emotion comes up, the emotion which is an energy of itself, an unconscious mass of energy, it drives people to go into the imagination and think and worry about the situation. So what's happened is the person is no longer aware of the physical surroundings and of the body and looking consciously, what can I do? What needs to be done in this? I'm going to stay aware and experience it consciously, but instead they've gone into the imagination, let go of the self-awareness, aware of being aware, and lost themselves in the imagination, thinking and worrying, remembering, regurgitating, like the merry-go-round of emotion and imagination. And after a while, the emotion goes back down to the unconscious. It hasn't been addressed, hasn't been made conscious, hasn't been resolved. That karma, if it wasn't karma in the first place, it is now, because it wasn't addressed. So tomorrow or the next day or some point, the same emotion will come up again in another situation. As within, so without. So express it and you feel the same anger, upset, hurt, resentment, whatever, as you did last time. Because the same emotion, but now maybe different situation, and you get the chance again to experience it consciously and resolve it. But if we again go into the imagination and think and worry about the problem, it'll go down again. And that will happen forever, potentially. Time and time and time and time again. That bit of emotion will keep coming up in different situations until finally you're conscious. Stay aware when it's there. The emotion will be squirming, try and make you think and go into the imagination. But if you just hold it, stay conscious, take any action you need to address the problem, because that may have been part of the problem. You weren't taking action and you're avoiding it. But you take some action, stay conscious with the emotion dissolves, and that karma has been resolved. That also means if there was some resentment in there, all the emotion from the past and all of it that would have come in the future has also been resolved along that thread. So you've resolved that. The thing is, because people have spent normally their whole lives 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 70 years living unconsciously, there's an awful lot of stuff to come up. But as you're doing it, you only have to face each bit once. Each bit of emotion you face once, experience it consciously once, and it's gone forever. It never comes back. If there's a lot of emotion invested in a situation, it might come in bite-sized bits. So you might think, oh, it's back again. Well, actually, it's a different bit, just the same mass. It's just being eroded away bit by bit. But you only have to experience each bit of unconscious energy, each bit of emotion once, and it's gone. So as you can see there again, that aspect of karma is no judgment, it's no punishment, it's your own self-made emotion that wasn't made conscious. Unhappiness, anger, resentment, fear, worry, regret, whatever it is, which you've got buried in your unconscious, like a rucksack's been likened to before, carrying rocks in your back, and you're carrying it around all day, every day. And it keeps coming up in different situations, time and time and time again. So again, this is your karma, you're holding on to it, you're creating it, you're carrying it. All you have to do, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's very simple. Stay conscious, stay aware of the body, the breathing, the physical environment. When the emotion's there, stay aware, and that anchors you to here and now. And that means the emotion, the karma, is being experienced consciously. Like a rabbit caught in the headlights, they say. It's frozen to the spot. It's not off in the imagination, thinking and worrying. You're holding it with your attention. And as you take action, if you need to, or you keep looking at the situation intelligently, what can I do? Do I need to do anything? How did I contribute to this? What can I do? What's happening here? But you're staying conscious at the time. The energy is being dissolved. Eventually it's gone. It might take a few minutes, it might take a few hours, depending on how much emotion is invested, but it is being dissolved. So that's the second part of karma, emotional attachment. And then there's the third one. There might be others, these are just what occurs to me. The third one is more about the circumstances of one's life for one's personal growth and learning. It's not about judgment of anyone or anything, and it's not about emotional attachment to a specific thing that needs to be addressed, let's say. It'll come back to emotion in some way, because everything does, but it's more subtle than that. There's certain experiences that aren't necessarily painful, just one needs to go through to learn about oneself and one's state of being and one's true nature. Now, I mentioned tentatively because people can latch onto it, but I'm saying it's wrong. For example, there's disabled people. And the assumption can be, if you believe in karma, they're being punished. But often what's happened is in that place, it wanted the consciousness in that space, the soul, the being, entity, didn't want to create any more karma this time, any more pain and suffering for itself. But it wanted to get rid of a lot. And so it is said that when one is in disabled body, there are a lot of different energies one has to connect with, where it's patience, acceptance, being looked after, being cared for, being vulnerable, being dependent upon others, almost being trapped. And that can have great and lasting energetic and conscious implications on the being there. It can grow a lot like that. and it will be through its own, from behind the scenes, its own choice. If you believe in karma, past lives, in between the lives, the soul would have chosen to come in as that, in order to learn whatever it wanted to learn. Not a punishment. As we said, karma is always one's own emotional attachment, holding on of some sort. So here, it needed to learn something, grow, let something go, whatever it is, accept something. But that goes for the whole circumstances of one's life. There's an energetic knowledge behind the scenes governing how it happens, how it plays out. Emotion has a lot to do with it. If there's a lesson one is going to learn, a difficult lesson that was going to last for many years, the circumstances of one's life are quite difficult. If one starts to wake up, become more conscious before that, the whole thing can be cut short. It happens much quicker because it's already been learnt. One's learned the lesson. It doesn't have to last 10, 15 years. It might last only 3 or 4 or 5, but it's much shorter than it would have been because the lesson has been learnt. The one has grown from it already. But it's already happened. Now, if one was going to have a difficult lesson later, one has already learnt the lesson now instead, that situation might never happen at all. If one is already in the situation playing out and the emotion's there, then you'll have to be conscious, dissolve the emotion till it's played itself out. But it might be quicker now. But the point is, it's about one's own nature and being conscious and being whole and being at one and working with one's own being and working with life. Karma isn't someone else making something happen to you to punish you. There's your own judgment of yourself and others. Let that go. That's not a good one to hold on to. There's not being conscious when emotion arises. Do what you can, because that will change everything. And then there's life playing itself out on a deeper level, the energy that's remaining that needs to be expressed, the lessons learned, some good,